There are many reasons why we must enhance the accessibility of airports to persons with disabilities. It is, first of all, a human imperative, providing all individuals with full and effective access to society and with the freedom of movement are rights enshrined in the UN Convention on the Right of Persons with Disabilities. It is also a societal issue. According to the World Health Organization, 15% of the world's population have a disability. This number is increasing due to medical advances and growing life expectancies. Any one of us can now expect to spend an average of 8 years living with a disability. How many choose not to travel or travel less because it might be too difficult? I have relatives in other continents whose disabilities make it difficult for them to travel to Canada to visit me. And globally, this untapped market is in the order of tens, if not hundreds, of millions of people. This means that it makes business sense for airports to invest in inclusion and accessibility. It makes sense to remove barriers to travel for disabled passengers, but also barriers to employment. In many parts of the world, the job market is currently one of high demand and low supply. Airports are struggling to bring staff back to the workplace. In this environment, organizations should be active in providing the right conditions to attract a wide and diverse pool of talent. But there is another simple motive. I work in the aviation industry and I love aviation. I am sure I am not the only one here today who does. Traveling by air is a wonderful thing, and I wish more people could experience it. There is nothing like watching the sun rise in a tall airport terminal or watching it set from your aircraft window. We tend to take for granted the technological and human advancements that make flights possible every day. We should allow as many people as possible to experience and benefit from it. At Airports Council International, we represent airports and we act as their voice globally. We have a membership of close to 2,000 airports in 183 countries. Our members come together in our general assemblies, our board, and our committees to help the industry become safer, more secure, more resilient, and more sustainable. But this industry has suffered the worst crisis in its history with the COVID-19 pandemic. Global passenger traffic in 2021 was only half of what it was in 2019. The situation was even worse in the Middle East, with an estimated drop of about 70% in passenger traffic in 2021 compared to 2 years earlier. With this in mind, survival and recovery have been understandable priorities for our airport members around the world, all the while ensuring the safety and health of travelers and staff. But sustainability is also at the top of our agenda. ACI has adopted an ambitious goal that airports will reach net zero carbon emissions by 2050. Climate change will be a key topic at the International Civil Aviation Organization's Assembly later this year. But sustainability is not limited to the environment. It includes economic and social aspects. We are taking concrete actions to meet the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Target number 10.2 in particular aims to empower and promote the social, economic, and political inclusion of all by 2030. Irrespective of age, sex, disability, race, ethnicity, origin, religion, or economic or other status. In 2019, our highest body, the World Annual General Assembly of ACI, adopted a milestone resolution which affirms the commitment of airports worldwide to continuously strive for excellence in customer service and experience, including accessibility for passengers with disabilities. These are not just words. I know Dubai Airport, one of our key members, has adopted an ambitious People of Determination experience strategy, and I commend them for the many actions they are taking. There is a growing tendency and growing understanding that the term disabilities is an encompassing term that covers a wide range of physical or cognitive conditions, permanent or temporary, visible or invisible. In this sense, we are making progress. Just a few years ago, it was common to focus on and only refer to persons with reduced mobility, forgetting a large part of the population from our strategies. The mindsets are evolving. At ACI, our accessibility strategy is working on 3 levels. First, by making sure the regulatory framework is sound. Secondly, by helping our members share and adopt best practices. Third, by forming partnerships. Let me explain each of these. On the regulatory side, we work closely with the International Civil Aviation, or ICAO, the UN organization specializing in aviation, to enhance the global regulatory framework around accessibility. A set of common obligations for all states are included in its facilitation annex. This annex includes a good set of compulsory standards with some additional recommendations. But in this case, the aviation industry is asking for a more comprehensive and ambitious regulatory framework. This was agreed by ICAO last year, and we look forward to contributing to further work in the next months. Regulations are important because they constitute a baseline and they level the playing field. Persons with disabilities expect a certain level of service throughout their travel, and good regulation can provide more seamlessness across travel modes. However, regulations also have the potential to discourage innovation when they are too prescriptive. They can do more harm than good when they create a mindset of compliance. This happens when operators and staff become focused on avoiding penalties instead of continuously improving. Regulations should allow airports to go above and beyond and do things differently. This includes deploying autonomous wheelchairs, wayfinding apps, and beacons, for example. Innovation and continuous improvement can happen when regulations are focused on the outcome, that is, on what needs to be achieved, instead of focusing on how things need to be achieved. Secondly, we are helping our members by establishing strong guidelines and best practices. Airports have some great lessons to share. Vancouver Airport, for instance, has a program which gives people on the autism spectrum and their family members and caretakers the opportunity to tour the airport and become acquainted with its procedures before their trip. London Gatwick was one of the first airports to introduce a sensory room to create a relaxing environment for passengers with a wide range of disabilities and conditions. Hong Kong Airport has a caring corner where persons can pause and relax while waiting for assistance. Many airports from Heathrow to Seattle are part of the Hidden Disability Sunflower Lanyard program, whereby wearing a sunflower lanyard enables staff to provide support without the need to verbally declare their disability. Finally, more and more airports have accessible adult changing facilities, which allow non-ambulant persons to use toilets safely, comfortably, and with dignity. We wanted to recognize these emerging best practices, and we did so through our handbook called Airports and Persons with Disabilities. This ACI publication looks at infrastructure elements, such as the provision of barrier-free access points, ramps, and tactile paving, but it also considers operational components, such as boarding and disembarkation processes for persons with mobility aids, personnel training and awareness, and evacuation plans. The Airports and Persons with Disabilities Handbook is available on the ACI online store, and it is fast becoming a global reference. To sensitize airport staff directly, ACI's online learning center also offers 2 online training programs that are related to universal access and accessibility. A certificate in airport accessibility for specialist staff, and a disability sensitivity training for front staff. More online courses that deal with providing accessible customer service to travelers with disabilities are also in the works. ACI was assisted by our partners to develop this latest edition of the handbook and our training material. This included disability groups and, of course, airports. Equally, we rely on partners across the aviation ecosystem to make sure that air travel can be as seamless and inclusive as possible, from the person's departure to their end destination. Airlines are a crucial part of the experience. We are involved in several IATA groups working on disability, including a recently formed action group on mobility aids. I am also excited that a new version of the IATA Airport Development Reference Manual, or ADRM, will be published in a few months. Airport retrofits are possible, but they are often costly. Instead, good airport planning and design can address many of the challenges early on. The next edition of the ADRM will include a revamped section on airport accessibility, to which ACI and many airports were associated. One of the key principles that the reference manual will include is that airport planning should incorporate the principles of universal design. We tend to design objects and infrastructure around the average user. This approach excludes everyone that is not in the average. It can even exclude, as is the case with persons with disabilities, a large segment of the traveling population. Instead, design should ensure that facilities are accessible by everyone and built around the abilities of the greatest number of persons. So, what are my key recommendations today? The first one is one that you are already familiar with, and your presence here today confirms it. It is that accessibility is a topic that will only grow in importance in the next years due to demographic shifts and a greater focus placed on diversity and inclusion in society. The second recommendation is for airports, or indeed all organizations, to engage with users. There is a phrase which sums this up: nothing about us without us. Airports should have a disability community consultation group that it engages with regularly. Thirdly, and it is linked to inclusion, is that universal design makes sense and that it can be done more easily when taken into account into the early stages of airport planning. Fourth, innovation and digital solutions can radically improve journeys for disabled persons, and we will see new solutions appear in the next years. Fifth, these innovations will only thrive when regulations let them thrive. Regulations are not a ceiling to reach, they are the floor. By fostering a culture of inclusion, of innovation, and of partnership, we can all start moving towards a more inclusive society where everyone has a chance to experience the wonders of flight. Thank you.